to host the class, but I've been very busy with school and a whole lot of things, and I just couldn't make it. But I was like, any knowledge you have is very important that you try as much as possible in your own way to actually pass it on to other people because it could be of help. And seeing that Hailerz is a platform where creators come together from every part of the world to become better at what they do, and they still end up rewarding us. It's like a two-in-one package where we win and win, no loss. So without wasting time, because what I want to talk about is broad, but I'm just going to talk about three very important things that I have in mind. And if anybody needs the material that I'm going to be using now, you can feel free to reach out to me on Instagram, and I would send them to you, or you can just you can reach out to Hailerz and then they get in touch with me, and then I'll share the material with them so that you can also get hands on the material and be able to use it properly for photography purposes. I believe that everybody that is here has an interest in photography, whether as a business person, whether as a hobbyist, or even as a professional. I don't know, because the link was online, so anybody could have joined and be here. So I really appreciate that you guys took out time to be here. So jumping in very quickly, I believe you can all see my screen, right? So I'll be talking about mastering composition. That's basic photographic compositions. And in this book that I have here, there are a lot of compositions that are here, but I'm just going to talk about three basic compositions in photography that I believe that I have been able to use and master over time with consistent practice and constantly taking pictures and observing them in the process of taking my pictures. But before I go into the composition, I would like to explain certain things about photography that are very, very basic, but a lot of people do not take note of it, and then they don't get the best out of whatever device they're using for photography, whether it is their phone or it is a DSLR, because it's very important to understand that there are certain things that you have to do, and if you don't do those things, you might be very surprised that you might be using a device that is very expensive, but in the long run, you're not getting the results of what you want to get. And the first thing I'll be talking about is actually cleaning your lens. I know it sounds very basic for you to clean your lens, but if you don't clean the lens of your device, whether it's a phone you're using, or you're using a DSLR, or you're using a mirrorless camera, or whatever camera or whatever device you're using to take photographs, if you do not clean your lens, your pictures will never come out great. Even if you bought your camera for $1,000 or you bought your phone for $1,000, so long as you're not cleaning the lens of that camera, you just pick it out of your pocket or you just took it up from the table where you dropped it to start taking pictures, your pictures are not going to come out properly. And the fact that your pictures cannot come out properly is not your camera's fault, it's actually your fault. So before you take any picture, the first thing you should do, even before you start worrying about the composition or how to position yourself, is to first and foremost clean your lens. You can get a soft fiber. You can even use your clothes to just clean to make sure that there are no fingerprints or any oil smudges on your lens. And that will enable your camera to see clearly and be able to capture whatever it is that you want to capture. So using this book, I'm just going to talk about compositions. You can see from the table of contents, we have a couple of compositions. Right here, we have the rules of third, we have using symmetry, we have understanding balance, using lines in photography, adding interest with camera angles, out of focus, foreground framing, manipulating depth and perspective, composing better backgrounds. But because of our time, we might not be able to like touch up everything. So I'm just going to start with the ones that I'm very familiar with, and then we can still talk about the other ones as time goes on. And you can take your time out as well to read this book. It's very interesting because there are pictorial figures that you can use as a reference while you're studying certain compositions to be used for photography. So going on, the first thing I would like to talk about is the rule of third. So I'll also be reading from here. and you can just follow me. I believe you can see it, so you can understand where I am. So whatever it is that I need to explain, I'm going to explain. And if there is need for me to show you a picture that depicts what I'm trying to say, I'll also show you from my gallery so you can actually understand better. So the rules of third. So one of the most fundamental principles of photographic composition is the rule of thirds. In fact, it's such an easy composition technique to master, yet has a very powerful effect on an image. Once learned, you know how to properly frame your photos in a way that places your subject on one of the most appealing spots within the image. The theory behind the rule of third is that if you break an image up into thirds, you can have 9 equal parts. Just imagine a grid and place your subject on one of the intersecting lines. You have a photograph that is much more attractive to the viewer. Below is an example of the intersecting parts that make up the rule of third. Imagine this grid as you look through the viewfinder of your camera. Now, you can see this grid here. I'm going to explain certain things so you can understand what the grid is doing here. So I'll be going to my camera app, and in my camera app, you will see that coming. Let me just switch it up to myself. So in my camera app, you discover that there is a grid on my camera. There are lines on my camera, right? Those are the lines that you can use when you are composing your image with the rule of third. You can just go to the settings of your camera and slide till you see what's it called? Till you see grid lines. This is it. You see grid lines. You turn it on. Use it, you turn your grid lines on. It's very important. If you're using a phone, it's very important. Even on your digital camera, on your viewfinder, you can also get to turn on your grid lines. So you turn on your grid line because it is very important to understand the rule of third. Now, having my grid line like this, right? You can see that the image is separated into 9 equal parts. There is coming. Sorry. Okay. So there is one part here, there is another part here, there is another part here, another part, another part, another part, another part, another part, and another part. That's 9 equal parts are actually in the grid line. Now, the rule of third explains that for you to make your subjects to be very interesting, you have to position your subject at different intersections. Now, when intersection is talked about, intersection, this is an intersection, this is an intersection, this is an intersection, and this is an intersection. So the moment you put your subject in any of these intersections in certain ways, you create interest in your photo. And the fact that you create an interest in your photo makes your photo even more appealing. Now, the difference between just normal photographers and pro photographers is the use of certain composition. Certain rules are being put in place to make image look very interesting. Certain times that you see some images and you wonder, this image, there's just something about it. It's not really like there is something about it. It's just the way the image is being composed. Because two people can photograph an image and then you will have different interest in the image based on how it is being composed. Now, this is the grid line. So the rule of third adds interest to photographs. What many new photographers don't know is that placing a subject in the middle of a photo tends to make the photo feel boring to the viewer. A photo that is framed like this is predictable and lacks visual tension. However, by simply sliding your subject over to one of the intersecting lines of the rule of third grid, your photo immediately becomes more appealing because it is unpredictable. Aligning your subject in this manner enhances the visual tension in the photo, making it more interesting to the viewer. Now, rule of third is there because if you put your image in the center, like in this center, oh my goodness, I need to clean this up. So let me clean this up. So if you have your image in this place, right, in the middle right here, it doesn't create any sort of tension. It doesn't create any sort of visual tension because the moment I open the picture, I could already see what's in the picture. So nothing really interests me. Nothing is mysterious about the picture. But the moment I do not put my image in that middle point and I tend to put it somewhere like this, around this place, you notice that your attention is not in the middle, your attention is drawn towards something. It gives this visual attention. So the moment you put something that is a subject at that intersecting line, it enables people to feel this sort of visual tension. Let me look for a picture in my gallery to show you what I'm trying to explain so you understand better. So I have a picture of my sister here. Okay, yeah, let me use the picture of this boy. Good. So I was at the basketball court and these boys were playing football all around. And then I was photographing them in the evening. And then you can see something about this picture. The moment you look at the picture, you don't dictate what's or you don't perceive what is happening at the moment because the ball is not in the frame, it's not centralized. So our eyes are meant to see straight up, not sideways. So the moment I look at the picture at first, I don't understand what is going on. So I'm interested in like, what is going on with this picture? I want to see what is going on. And then I discovered that, oh, there's a boy standing on blue shirts and some sort of milkish, this milk now, carton brown trouser, raising his hand up. But then I did not see it at first when I opened the image because I had to still scroll to the side before I can understand. Another implementation of rule of third is this picture I took down here. Now, I did not place this lady who is making the clothes at the middle of the picture. Now, we understand that the picture is long, and we're still going to get to that as regards the rule of third to understand how we can also position the picture that doesn't just stay on one intersection. Now you can put a picture on two different intersections depending on the length and the breadth of the image. So for this, she's not centralized. If you look at it very well, you discover that she's placed on some certain intersections right here. You see some black lines around here. She was placed on that intersection, and then she goes on, and some part of her sewing machine and her thread are also on the other side of the intersecting line right here. So there's an intersection. She's on an intersection right here. She's on an intersection right here, and another intersection right here. Because the image is long, that's the reason why it's like that. So basically, you understand now that you placing your image on those certain intersections creates some sort of visual tension on your image, and that is what makes the rule of third very special. I want to see also show us a picture to depict what I was saying about the rule of third. Now, this is a picture of my sister, and then we were having a shoot for a challenge, and then you can see that the moment you look at the picture at first, you do not see her. In fact, the first thing you will see in this picture are the trees because they are very big and bold. But if you look very well and look very closely, she is on, in as much as she was not even on the intersecting line, I was using a digital camera, so I did not use the line as a guide to actually implement the rule properly. But that was the aim of this picture, to give it visual tension by placing her at a certain end of the image. But it is supposed to be on an intersection actually. She's supposed to be, say, yeah, she's supposed to be on this intersection right here. But then I wasn't using a viewfinder, I was just using my head to say, oh, this is how it should be placed. So this creates some sort of visual tension. And compare it to an image like this. The moment you open this image, you've already seen everything that is going on. So there is no visual tension. You already see that, oh, this lady is smiling. When you slide into this image, you'll be like, what's going on? So you have to take like a couple of seconds to say, oh, there's a lady dancing by the side of the image. So that's what rule of third does. It creates visual tension for you, for the image that you're looking at. And then we have an example here. You can see the figure that is here. You see that this tree can easily be placed in the middle of this frame, but it was not placed in the middle of the frame because it's just going to look like every other normal picture. So there is a need for it to be placed on the certain intersections to create some sort of visual tension for the viewer, and it makes it quite interesting. You know, people like things that are mysterious. Humans, we always want something that is mysterious. If something is boring and it occurs over time, we get used to it and we don't feel it anymore. But the moment we see something that is different or dynamic, it catches our attention. So you're scrolling through Instagram and you wonder why you scroll past the picture and scroll back. It's not because the image is overly that different. It is because of the composition that is being used, and it is something that you want to understand. Your brain wants to understand it. So you have to scroll back, giving what is called visual attention and adding interest to enable people to see the story that you're trying to tell with what you're taking. So visual attention tends to make for better photographic compositions. This is why the rule of third is so powerful. It's amazing how making such a simple adjustment within the frame can take a potentially boring photo and make it more dynamic to look at. The next time you go to take a photograph, imagine the intersecting lines of the rule of third on top of your viewfinder, then place your subject on one of the 4 intersecting points. All right, so I talked earlier about the picture of my sister. I showed that she was sewing on a sewing machine, and the image was not just staying on one intersection, it was spreading out on different intersections. So for placement for vertically tall subjects, if you have a vertically tall subject, line it up that it touches either both of the left or right points. So, in the intersection, we have 4 different intersections, right? We have 2 at the top and we have 2 at the bottom, as the case may be. So if you have something that is vertically tall, vertically means, straight up, you make sure that they are touching 2 intersecting points, either on the left or on the right. You understand? Either on the left or on the right. For the image that you can see here, you discover that the lady is standing at 2 intersecting points. Let me mark out the intersecting points here. Coming, give me 1 second. So we have 2 intersecting points here. I believe that everybody can see this. We have 2 intersecting points here, and we have another one here. She's a vertically tall subject, so there is a need for her to be on 2 different intersecting points. But you can also see the negative space that is on this other side. This negative space that is coming from this side, from where she's standing to the other side, is what makes the rule of third very dynamic. So placing for horizontally long subjects, if you have the horizontally long subject, line it up that it touches either the 2 top or the bottom part. So I'm going to show us a picture that depicts that for an horizontal image. I hope I don't have to go that far to get this done. Please, sorry, pardon me. I had a long day, so I didn't really prepare for the images to be in one place. But I'm going to get this image as soon as I can. Okay, I think it should be here. I have a lot of photographs, so as a photographer, you take pictures all the time. Oh, Jesus. Okay. Just give me 1 second to find this image. Oh, it's long. Okay. I don't think I can. Okay, yeah, yes. I don't think I can find it still. Okay. I think I'll just use the illustration that is being used here. So for horizontally long images, we're talking about that the rule of third talks about using the intersection to position your image to be dynamic. So if you're having something that is horizontal, as the case may be, having something that is horizontally long, we talk about vertically long for this. Place it on 2 of the intersecting line, either on the right or on the left. But for something that we have that is vertically, that is horizontally long, you have to place them on a place that's on the 2 intersecting line, either at the top or at the bottom. So let me explain this using something very quickly. So, for example, if I have something that is vertically long, I have a perfume, a body spray box container here. If it is vertically long, on my intersecting point, it has to be like this. You understand? So it has to be at the top here and at the bottom here. But if it is horizontally, that means it has to be like this. It has to be either on the 2 bottom, this on the bottom intersection here and here, or I can take it and put it here on the top intersection here and here. So I believe that we understand that. So that's basically how to do with subjects that are vertically or horizontally long. So now placement for a dominant vertical and horizontal subject. It was like the case of my sister that I talked about that was showing. She was dominant both vertically and horizontally. So if you have a dominant vertical and horizontal subject within the frame, choose either the left or right 2 points and the top 2 or bottom point to align each with. So if you have something that is dominant, that is dominant vertically and horizontal, make sure that you're putting it on those 2 intersecting lines, and then you can spread it out. Just make sure that it is not centralized. It is touching those intersections. Those intersections are like a guidelines. They are the grid lines that guide you in this particular photography. So that about the rule of third. I know that there's so many things that you have to do. I wish I can be able to show us a couple of pictures that I have here to explain the rule of third even better. So I showed us this one. This one is very good for the rule of third. It's a very important, it's a very dominant image when it comes to the rule of third. I'm still trying to see something else that I can use to explain that for us. Um, let me see very quickly. Okay, yeah, I think I have a picture here. So good. This picture also utilizes the rule of third. You can see the negative space on the right side. And you can see that this guy is not just being centralized like he is here. This does not follow the rule of third. This was just taken straight up by breaking the rule. But for this, we are following the rule of third to create certain interest. I don't know if because I'm a photographer, this picture is a more dynamic image to me than this. Now, there are certain compositions that are here that I will still use to explain why this image is also dynamic. We're getting to that, but you can see that based on the rule of third, this image is dynamic. So I believe that we are understanding. I know I can't really get our feedbacks. But I would love to. I would really love to have our feedbacks so that I can know if we are on the same page. I don't know. Can we have feedbacks to know if we're on the same page? Hello? Hello?
Did you have a question?
Please, can we have feedbacks to know if we're on the same page?
Yes, we have the
Yes,
same.
absolutely.
Okay, okay, all right. So I don't know if Adibamiji is also online. I also love to hear from every other person just to know that everyone is on the same page with me because I've been talking for like 20 minutes now and it's feeling like I'm alone. Ifeanyi Adibamiji, please can you say something to keep me active and make me know that we are on the same page on this? I have like 2 minutes for that, please, if you're available. If you're not, I think we'll just go on with what we were doing. So,
Um, yeah, I have a question.
all right.
So, with the rule of thirds, are there exceptions? And how do you determine what's the subject and how do you determine what's the subject and what's the background? So, I know you
Okay.
already shared like a photo of someone in with the trees, and how do you determine if the trees
Okay.
should be the focus? I guess that's what I'm trying to understand.
Okay. All right. So, in photography, the subject is always is what is the focus of the image, being what is standing at the forefront of the image. So how you're going to know that this is the subject or not is not how dominant they are in the image. It's their presence, the way they are being presented. So a photographer is intentional with what they do, so they don't just take pictures. So in taking a picture of that lady that was in between the trees, you can see that the focus was not on the trees. I don't know. That's how I see it. And I showed it to a couple of people and be like, oh, that's dynamic. I didn't see her at first, but then seeing her adds a lot of interest in the image. Now it can happen that your interest might be on the trees at first, but looking through the image and you see her, you discover that the interest of the image was actually on her, and that's what makes it dynamic. So all one has to do is that you put your subject at the place where it can bring that interest. And as people tend to look at your pictures, certainly some things we act as though they are being dominant in the image. But the fact that when they eventually recognize the main subject which you framed in the rule of thought, it will make the picture more interesting. And then they will have to go back to it and be like, at first, what I was seeing were the trees. But then seeing this person placed in this certain position made it even more dynamic and makes this picture tell a story that I didn't see at first glance. Because, like, I understand what you're trying to say, because the trees were dominant. So it's not about the first glance. Because if it was about the first glance, then I would have put the lady in the middle of the frame so that when you slide, you just see her and then you scroll to the next picture. But the picture was meant to have that visual tension because our eyes see things. But the fact that you did not focus on her and you scroll past it, you'll be like, there's something that I'm missing. and you have to go back. So in going back, that's the visual tension. Or even if it's just the image that you're looking at it first, you don't see it at first. The first thing you see are the trees and the road, because that is what is more like dominant in the image. But then as you look through, as you look in depth more, you will see that there is something that is actually telling a story in the whole picture that was being taken. I don't know if that settles your concern, sir. Yeah, can I get feedback from you, sir?
Yes, that's helpful. Thanks.
All right. So I don't have much time. We have 30 minutes left, and I would love to keep to time. So I will just jump to the next composition. So this composition is the use of symmetry. I understand that I know that we know that symmetry is, or if we don't know, symmetry is having something looking identical. That's what symmetry is, having something looking identical. So if you look at the image that is here, you'll see that there are two seats by the beach, there's an umbrella, and there are two yachts with blue sailing sheets in the image. And if you look at it very well, if you use a ruler or a scissors, say you print this image and use the scissors to split the image into two, it will look as though you have two identical sides, right? So that's the rule of symmetry. It enables you to, you put your image in a position where if your image is divided into two, it will give you two equal sides. So how to use symmetry in photography. In the last chapter, you learned about the rule of third. I believe we all learned about the rule of third. And how positioning the subject off center in a photo results in a better composition. While this is true, and you should follow that advice more often than not, it is also important that you understand how symmetry can also be used to capture a great photograph. Yes, positioning a subject in the center of the frame can result in a boring photo, but there is a trick that can make a boring symmetrical photo and turn it into something captivating to look at. You will learn this trick in the pages that follow. By definition, symmetry in an image is when it can be split down the middle and the left and right side of the photograph are mirror images of each other. In geometrical terms, imagine taking a photo of a triangle or a square. If you cut that image in half, both sides of the photo would mirror each other. That's symmetry. Don't get up, don't get hung up on the idea that you have symmetry in an image. It has to be don't get hung up on the idea that to have symmetry in an image, it has to be an exact mirror image on both sides. Rarely is anything in our natural world perfectly symmetrical. As long as the image is close enough to looking the same on both sides, we consider it a symmetrical photo. So we see the rule of third that you place an image off the center. That's the rule of third, off the center on the intersections or at the intersections, whether vertically or horizontally. That's the rule of third. But for the rule of symmetry, is actually having a picture that if you split it into two, it might not give you mirror images of each other, but it should give you images that are identical, like the image that we have here. So that this is not to say that the rule of third is to be abolished. And now you don't apply the rule of third in every situation or in every scenario or in every circumstance. So what you want to capture is what will determine the rule that you will use. Because of our time, I think we'll just have to talk about three rules. We've talked about the rule of third, we're talking about symmetry, and then I will talk about leading lines. And then I think we'll call it a day. Probably another time we'll have more time to do class. So it is not in every situation that you must apply the rule of third, and it is not in every situation that you must apply symmetry, but you have to observe your scene way beyond the device that you carry. If I tell you for a fact that I started photography with a phone I bought for 26,000 naira, it's very funny, but that was the phone I started to do photography with. It doesn't have the best camera quality because I couldn't afford a better phone as at then, and so I just had to use what I have. So using what I have, I began to learn that it is not even about your camera. In as much as your camera is very important to give your picture that crispy look, it is also very important for you to understand how to position whatever it is that you are photographing. So whatever you're photographing is what will determine the rule or the composition that you will put in place to get this thing done. So if you're photographing a scenery where you can have two mirror images of each other, instead of using the rule of third, you have to implement the rule of symmetry. I believe that we are all together. So how do you achieve symmetrical photos? To achieve a symmetrical photo, all you have to do is fill your frame with something that is almost, if not perfectly identical on both sides of the frame. look for repetitious items within your scene and try to shoot a photo with them placed evenly apart. So I'm going to show us a picture from my end before we go to the pictures down there in let me just go down. Okay, good. This is a perfect example of symmetry. Now, what you are seeing here, it's a window, right? It's a window. The two windows are open. And if you look at it very well, if I try to split this image into two, we will have two symmetrical parts. Look at it very well. I split it like this. Can you see that we're having a part that is a mirror of the other side? Because if I move this side to this side as well, you will have something very similar, even if it's not perfectly identical, but you or perfectly mirror images of each other. But you can see that you can actually see that they are actually identical if they are split into two. That's one example of symmetry. Another example of symmetry that I have right here is this. Yes, in as much as this picture is not very much identical or a completely mirror images of each other, but you discover that if I to split this image into two, right, it will give me almost identical something. Aside if we remove the decks that are on the ground, you discover that the two images are like mirror images because there is a window on this side and the window on the other side, and if you split the image into two, it gives you something like a mirror image. So that's what symmetry is all about. So you look for repetitions in your scene. So when you see repetition in your scenes, you don't try to use the rule of third. You use the rule of symmetry to give it that visual interest. So now somebody opens this image, the first image I showed just now, right? And they'd be like, oh, what's this? There's an interest. What's going on here? Then you have to look and say, oh, it's a window that is being opened, right? But imagine that I use the rule of third and then I just place the window on one side. Truly, it can have visual tension, but you discover that for this is more like the best composition to use for it because naturally speaking, the image is they are mirror images if they are split into two. So take the photo below, for example. This is a perfect example of photography symmetry because both sides of the image contain a row of windmills and they are placed similarly on each side the frame. If the photographer had panned the camera a little more to the left or right, this would have broken the symmetry because the windmills would have not been spaced evenly apart. So if you look at this image very well, you see that there are windmills on the left, windmills on the right, and there are also windmills at the center. But you discover that the way the image was positioned, it made the image to have it will make the image to have a mirror effect if the image is split into two, that the right side and the left side will look as though they are mirror images of each other. So that's symmetry. It's having you see a repetition in a scene and then you photograph it to make it look that, okay, if I split this image into two, it will give me almost the same kind of image, either on the left or on the right. So yeah, the photo below is another good example of symmetry. By design, the architecture of the parliament building is symmetrical. The photographer exemplified this trait by framing the photo so that the tower of the building is in the center of the image and the rest of the building mirrors each other on both sides. If you look at this building very well, the building is symmetrical. Let me look for an image to show us so that we can understand. So it's not just going to be that we'll stick to what we have right there. I will show us an image of symmetry, and it's let me see. Good. So look at this image very well. Now, in as much as I have two other people in this image is a symmetrical image because if I split this image into two, you discover that there is a door on the left, there is a door on the right. If you look at the roofing, discover that the numbers of the roof at the top is almost, if I split it into two, it will give me two identical parts of images. So this is symmetry. Symmetry was included in this image. In as much as the rule of third was also implemented because the subject, which is the lady and the guy, were not placed in the middle of the image. So they were placed at the sides, at the intersections of, you can see this person is placed at an intersection, placed as an intersection. And then if you look at the whole scene, it's like combining the two rules together, the rule of third and symmetry. So symmetry is used when you notice that what you have in your surrounding can be split into two to give you mirror images of each other. Let me look for another image of symmetry to explain that to us. Good. This is a perfect example of a symmetrical image. If you look at it very well, if I split this building into two, Look at it. Let me split it. I split it into two. You have this side, right? If I should move this image to this other side, you discover that we have something like a mirror image, right? So if it will not make sense for me to see a building like this, and then I'm thinking of using the rule of third, because what should work perfectly in this scenario is the rule of symmetry, so that if this image is split into two, it can give you identical images. Let me look for one more to use to explain this so that we can understand even better. Just give me 1 second. Yeah, even this is symmetrical image. Yes, this is symmetry as well. Look at it very well. If you split this into two, you split this, right, and you move it to this side, you discover that you have like a mirror image of each other. So I can actually use the rule of third to frame this building, but it's not going to give that visual tension like the rule of symmetry would for this particular image. So let's just go down. We have to be very fast. We have 20 minutes left. So symmetrical photos can pose a problem. Yes. One of the biggest problems with symmetrical photo is that they can often lead to a boring image. When both sides of an image are identical, it doesn't take very long to look through the image. Everything looks mostly the same, and it's easy for a viewer to digest. Below is a classic example of a symmetrical image that doesn't have a lot of interest. No offense to the photographer. So we have an image of a road right here, right? But the fact that this road is just plain, you've seen roads before. So like I said, humans, when we see things often and often, it doesn't have so much value, or it doesn't have so much, let me put it that way, that so much value or so much recognition. Is recognition the right word to use? Let me put value, and let me explain with this. I believe that a lot of us here that might be here might be Nigerians. I know there are other people, because Hailerz is a global platform, so there can be other people from different parts of the world, and I respect you all. God bless you. But in the Nigerian culture, right? Let's say you are in the university, right, and you left home for like say 9 months or a year. When you get back home and your parents just see you, or your family people just see you, for the first 2 to 3 days, they will pamper you, because they've not been seeing you all the time, they've not been seeing you frequently. But just do like 2 weeks in that house, or do 3 weeks in that house. Nobody sees you as a visitor anymore. They are not asking you, how are you doing? They are not even checking up on you like they did when you just came back. Because why? They are starting to see you every day, so they're already familiar with you. So the essence of all these compositions, of all these rules, is to not make a photo to look familiar. The moment a photo looks familiar, the moment you see it, there is no visual interest. There is no suspense. There is no any kind of mysterious feeling that you're feeling to make you stick to the picture to see what is happening. That's it. So if an image is just plain, it can actually look boring. It can look boring because you're already used to it. You've seen roads countless times. You see things that are just straight up countless times. So nothing really changes. But then there is something that you can do to images like this to make it even more, to have more visual attention and to be more appealing to whosoever is looking at your image. So the photo is nearly identical on both sides of the frame, and not much is going on within it. All we see is a road and a horizon. The photo is very easy to digest, and not too many people would spend more than a second or two looking at this photo. Why? It is a good composition, it lacks any visual tension, which would keep a viewer interested in the shot. So your goal is to prevent boring symmetrical photos. I don't think I've seen any boring rule of third photo. For me, I don't know. I've not seen any boring rule of third photo, because that tension is just always there. But for symmetrical photos, that is still an issue, because compositions are meant to take out that boring feel, that boring mood out of whatever it is that you're doing. But when it comes to symmetry, you can still have that problem. So how do you do that? Right? So how do you do it? Number one, you can make an eye-catching symmetrical photo by following two rules. Capture an image where symmetry is not expected. Number two, break up the symmetry in some way to introduce visual tension. So in a place where symmetry is not even expected at all, if you capture it there, it's going to give the image that visual tension. I was in Lagos last year, and I took a picture coming. I took a picture, and this picture is one of my favorite pictures because I took it randomly with my phone with my ultra wide camera, and then I I discovered that it was symmetrical. Now this is the image. I took this picture. This is an hallway, right? It's an hotel, and there are, people just walk around and all of that stuff. It's just like a walkway where people walk around and it's just snapping some random things and just say, oh, I'm here. Whenever I want to take a picture, I make sure that I take it and people look at it and be like, how are you thinking? What kind of mindset do you have? But it's not like there is anything special about me. It is this book I used to understand these certain compositions. And trust me, it shouldn't just end with this class. As you go off this class in a couple of minutes, you read the book over and over and over and over again. As you read over and over again and you practice over and over again, that's how you get better. I've been in photography for 6 years, so I didn't just get here in a night. You understand? So I've walked distance, I've taken pictures of different places. I've even offered free shoots for people just to understand certain things and be able to put it into practice. So you can see this image now. Nobody expects symmetry in this place because it's just an hallway. It's just a walkway where people walk and enter their room and spend the night before they go to where they are going. But I looked at it that, oh, if I should do this, there should be something very interesting about this image. And trust me, I believe you can see that this image is quite interesting and it follows the rule of symmetry. There's another rule that this follows, but we'll get to that. I believe we can see rough that with the little time that we have. But this is an image of where symmetry is not expected. So this is supposed to be a boring image on a normal day because nobody's expecting you to have symmetry here. It looks as though, is there a mirror in between these images that make it look like this? But there is no mirror. So it is actually a tactic that you take symmetrical photos where nobody's expecting symmetry. That's one of the rules to make a symmetrical photo very appealing. You can see this image now that is here. It's just like the image I took. It is symmetrical and it's just okay. Below are a few examples of capturing an image where symmetry is not expected. Yes, these photos are symmetrical, but notice how they are anything but boring. This is a symmetrical image, but I trust that you can see that this is not a boring image because you're wondering, what is this about? You're trying to understand, even me, I'm trying to understand it, but if you zoom in properly, you discover that this is um an office space with people having their computers. You can see a lady seated there, but then because the photo is not boring, you didn't just scroll past. You want to see, you want to zoom. What is going on? What kind of architecture is this? What's happening here? Somebody sitting down there. Is there a computer? Is that a door on this place? Is that a door for people to get into their workspace? And that makes the photo already a great photo because it keeps you glued to your screen. Also, you can see this image here. This is what would I call this now? I've forgotten what this is called. More like a staircase, and then the handles, all the staircase that moves automatically. I've forgotten the name, sorry. Now I'm a local champion. I don't really know all of these things. So you can see that,
Escalator.
yeah, an escalator. Thank you very much. So you can see that there is a visual tension with this. It's just an escalator, for heaven's sake. But because of the way the image was taken, it's like a staircase that is having two handles on the left and the right, and you can actually create symmetry there. Nobody's expecting symmetry there because they just see it as a staircase. But the moment you put symmetry there, it makes the image even more interesting. So if you go for international competitions, you see they say the images are going to be judged based on composition. You're trying to understand, what do they mean by composition? It is how you present your image. Now, you might have a good phone, you might have a great device, but if you don't know how to present your image properly, of what use is the device when it comes to photography? So that's basically it. You can see here as well. This is very funny. This looks very funny, but this is a symmetrical image. Because if you look very well, you see two sockets on the bottom left and the bottom right. You see somebody in the middle and all of that stuff. You split the image into two, you kind of have like an identical photo. So it's just for you to understand that the moment you're putting in these certain rules or compositions, you must have visual tension to it. You can also see here as well. Yeah, this is a symmetrical image and it's very interesting to look at if you look at it very well, because the lines on the left, people walking, there are little elements, little subjects that are here and there that makes it quite interesting. I want to talk about the leading lines. That's why I'm rushing up to do this. So I think I will just keep that. I will not talk about balance. So we'll just go straight up to leading lines. So using lines in photography. Now, At first glance, you may be unaware that many photographs contain lines. Sometimes these lines are very apparent, such as a set of power lines or the long stretch of a fence. However, more often than not, these lines are subtle and created by the elements within a scene. For example, a horizontal line created by an ocean horizon, vertical lines created by trees in a forest, diagonal lines formed by the limbs of a person, and curved lines painted by a winding road. Regardless of the lines, if the lines are immediately apparent or within a photo, each type of line and its direction evoke a certain feeling in a viewer. Horizontal lines portray one thing, while vertical, diagonal, and curved line characterize something completely different. In the following pages, we will teach what each type of line means and how you can use them to your advantage in your photography. Now, looking at the picture of this bird, now there's just something interesting about this picture. Now, there are two birds on the power line, but those power lines that you see moving, it's a line, it creates this visual tension for you. So I would pretty much say that composition in photography creates visual tension, turning a boring image into a dynamic image. All right. So using horizontal line convey stability and peace. If you look at this image, you just feel this calmness around the image. Like this image is very minimalistic, but it's quite interesting. You're like, oh my god, who positioned these birds and certain power line? I just start wondering different kind of things. You're still on the picture, like we are still on the picture now. You just be on the picture and we're wondering, wow, this is amazing. Why? Because there are lines there. So horizontal line, one of the major advantages of composing a photo with a subject that consists of a dominant horizontal line is that it can create a sense of stability and peace. Just think about the many photos you've seen of a landscape, horizon, ocean, etc., where the main subject creates a dominant horizontal line. You probably felt the same way that most others feel when they look at this photo, a sense of peace and stability. When composing a photograph, it doesn't matter how many dominant horizontal lines are within the frame. It could be one, two, three, or more. The effect on the viewer is still the same, calm, gentle, and restful. In contrast, vertical lines convey power, strength, and growth. More on this will be discussed in the next chapter, including vertical lines within a photo can disrupt the peacefulness that horizontal lines convey. Knowing the effects horizontal lines have in your photo will help you to shoot better photographs because you will know how to use them to your advantage. For example, take a look at the two photos below. Both contain an element that creates a dominant horizontal line. The first photo has a horizontal line formed by the receding ocean, while the second photo has a horizontal line made up from the silhouette of the landscape the trees are growing on. Now look at this image. This image just looks peaceful. I believe we all agree. I believe nobody will oppose that this image is peaceful. And one thing that was being placed in this is that horizon of the sea in contrast to the sky. That line, just that single line, is what creates an interest in this image. That is what creates an interest in this image. And I also want to say something. For you to be able to make all this composition to work, when you are taking pictures with your phone, let me open my camera so that you will see me. I need to explain this because I'm always pissed off whenever I see it. When you're taking pictures with your phone, so that you keep your phone like this, right? Or you keep your phone like this. Don't take pictures like this. Don't take pictures like this. If you're taking pictures like this and taking pictures like this, there's a high tendency you're not going to follow any composition rule. There is a high tendency because in the first place, you've broken the rule. You've broken the rule in the first place. So it's very important to understand that for you to get certain things like this, your phone or your camera should be horizontally, placed horizontally properly and or vertically properly. So you can see this image now. We have horizontal lines. Now, photography, great photographs is like I said earlier, it's not just about your device. It's about your observation, how you observe certain things around you, and in that observation, you are able to bring out something that tells a story about your picture, something that makes your picture looks dynamic. You know, if there is no dynamic stuff about your picture, then it's just going to look like every regular picture. And nobody's going to stop and say, oh, let me see what is happening here, or let me see what this have to do. So we can see that both of these photos are both contain horizontal line, which can feel often calm and stable to you. Most likely you choose the first photo of the ocean as being more calm and stable. That's because the dominant horizontal line is not interrupted by contrasting vertical or diagonal lines. The vertical line created by the trees in the second photograph disrupt the calm effect that the horizon horizontal line created by the landscape. So we can see that there is an horizontal line that was created by the landscape down here. Let me highlight that. This horizontal line here of the landscape, that's an horizontal line. But we can see that the vertical line creates some sort of disruption, power, dominance. That's what horizontal vertical lines does. They create this power, this dominance on your image. But if you have an horizontal image, horizontal line of your image, it creates peace, calm, that tranquility is what it gives to your image, right? So, but so how can you use this font knowledge to your advantage? The next time you want to ensure that your photo portrays a sense of calmness, you should position your camera so that it only contains horizontal line and eliminates any subject that creates contrasting line, such as vertical or diagonal. This way, you can ensure that your photo elicits a calming feeling in the viewer and not create tension. Like I said, if you want to take a picture, what makes a great picture is what you've already envisioned in your mind. That, okay, I want to create something that resonates with people, something that brings calm, something that brings peace. Let me check through and show us a certain image um, very quickly. Um, Coming, just give me.
We're at the 5 minutes
Yeah,
warning. Just letting you know how much time we have left.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. What's this image? I'm sorry, I have thousands of images on my phone.
Yeah, I mean, we need to bring you back to come and teach more of this. Like I like that the focus is on composition. There's so many, aspects to photography that this could even a
Honestly,
three-part series or something. So, you know, definitely something to consider.
okay. I can't find that image, so let's just go on. We have very limited time. So now, photographers beware. Since horizontal line portrays a sense of stability and peacefulness, you need to be aware of the fact that they can also make a photo feel static and boring. A good trick you can use to keep the photo interesting is by including an element that acts as a point of interest. So, in putting, like I said, some certain rules are there, but if they are there to change a boring image to be a dynamic image, but if certain things are not still being in place there, it's just going to be a boring image. Now look at this image of these birds on this line. If this image was just about these power lines, I bet you it's not going to have any interest whatsoever. It is not. But just these two little birds that you see, this Peter and Paul, fly Peter, fly Paul, that you can see on the power line, made the image to be even more interesting. So it's very important to understand that in as much as you are putting lines in your image, you are still expected to put certain objects in your image that will make it even more appealing. So I'm just going to jump straight to something here. Um, I know our time is almost over. Our time is almost over. Look at this image very well. You can see vertical lines. Now, this is the image of my faculty on campus, and you can see vertical lines and horizontal lines on this. This is leading lines, and it gives this image attention. This image is just an image of a building. I think the building is okay. Let's just use this. Now, this is what I did. I tried to position those lines to create some sort of dominance. You can see that the image makes the building to look like big, like and then I wanted to have this peaceful feeling, but the vertical lines in between, you're actually disrupting the peacefulness and the calmness, making this to make a bold statement that this is a bold building right here. And also I also did something with that here. You can see there are leading lines, vertical lines that creates dominance. Looking at this, you know that these buildings are not just a story building, they are buildings with stories. Why? Because of the leading lines, the way the leading lines were placed, it make the image to have this visual interest. If you look at this as well too, the leading lines are there, the vertical leading lines. You can see that vertical leading lines create this dominance in your image. There is dominance in the image because that is what vertical lines does. That power, that dominance is what it gives. But when you have something that is horizontal, you can't believe, who will believe that the image I took just now is the image of this faculty. Now it doesn't look so big or so large because it is very far away. So you need to understand, okay, look at this now. This is a leading line now. This is horizontal leading line. And you can see that it's just straight up and it gives this sense of calm. I don't know. That's how I see it. It gives this sense of calm. So, but because of our time, I only want the class to just end up on us. So I'm sorry I didn't have time for other people to contribute or to say their mind, but I'm really glad for everyone that joined and thank you very much. I hope we'll meet some other time and we can talk even more better. Thank you very much. I'm grateful.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one thing that's also very impressive is how, oh, it looks like you left already. No, you're still there. One thing that's
Yeah,
impressive is the way you're able to use your phone to present all of this. So, the annotation, the switching between, presentation and camera is just, it shows mastery of what you're doing. And I know you mentioned it might be your first time teaching a class like this. Definitely keep at it, and look out for more opportunities. We're always there in case you have something else to teach. Appreciate everyone for joining, and especially Bamila for teaching this class. Have a
very much, sir.
yeah, yeah.
All
Except
right.
you have any final words?
Now, what I have to just say is go through the book. I will try to get the book across to Hailerz either by email or in any way. So anybody that needs it can just reach out and they can get it, and they just read and practice. Photography is all about practice. You
Yeah.
don't just get it by hearing it from somebody. You have to experiment. You have to go out. You have to check. You have to walk. You have to go places, take pictures. You have to collaborate with people. In collaboration and all of that, you can be able to master this and be able to um, be maybe like me and even more than like me.
Yeah, go out and take some pictures. I'm going to go out today and take at least 5 pictures from what I've learned today. So looking
Yeah.
forward to what everyone else creates. Thanks once again, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
And you too,
All
sir.
right,
Bye, sir.
all right, bye.
Sure.